Hi, Sara.
Hello, Alejandra.
Welcome to a new UMICHile conversation that I call, that we're doing every Sunday to reconnect with all my friends from the University of Michigan. I'm so happy to have you here this Sunday and to get to know you a little better. Yeah.
Thank you. It's really great to see you as well and to get to talk about things that we've been up to for the last 20 years. I'm really excited.
It's pretty amazing, huh?
Yes.
Usually, I like to start this conversation by asking the guests first where they are from. So, Sara, where are you from?
Okay. Actually, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is in the Prairie Provinces of Canada, right in the middle. And I tell my American friends that it's right north of North Dakota because my American friends don't always know where Manitoba is.
Great. How was your starting times with music? How music came into your life?
Well, that's a great question. So you're probably familiar with this Suzuki method of teaching.
Yes.
It started in Japan with Dr. Shinichi Suzuki, and it started out as a violin program, and it's now expanded to include many different instruments. And I love the fact that it's quite big in South America, I think now, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I met some Suzuki teachers when I was in Buenos Aires a few years ago. So it was really neat. And we weren't there for kind of Suzuki related trip. But so when this method came to Winnipeg, that would have been in the, I would say, late 1970s. And so a couple of teachers brought it to Winnipeg, and my mom heard about it, and my brother had this huge interest in music already. Since he was really little, they gave him a ukulele, and he just would never put that thing down. So they thought, well, we need to get this kid another string instrument and get him some formal training. So they started his training with a wonderful Japanese teacher named Yuriko. And so I would be toted along to violin lessons, because my mother had two children and I was the younger one. So you go along. And of course she would include me in the lessons. She would, kind of not shut me out basically, even though I was only 2. Mm. And so of course I had a huge interest in doing what my brother was doing. And finally, yes, they agreed that I could start lessons 2 months before I turned 3. So I was very happy. And at that point, I renamed my teacher My Rico instead of Your Rico.
Great. Wow. It's amazing how Suzuki method is a worldwide method, no? When I was studying at Michigan, at least speaking for myself, I didn't know much about it yet. Mm. But then when I came to Chile and I started realizing how this method was so influential to many of us. For me specifically, I use the method for little kids to start yes. The instrument. I just love the philosophy behind it. Yeah. Exactly. In fact, maybe some of us don't know about this philosophy. Could you share that with us, the idea of Suzuki?
Absolutely. So basically, Dr. Suzuki, he was quite the philosopher, and he was always learning. He was actually a friend of Albert Einstein, I believe, in Germany, and he did study in Germany, I believe, for a while. He basically, then he came back to Japan and started this philosophy of teaching children whereby as a child can learn to speak, especially, any language in particular, but Japanese, I believe, they do start reading and writing a little bit later because it's quite complicated. But so his method was based on the fact that as a child learns to speak by listening to her or his mother or father, so can a child also learn the language of music. So it's just another language. You don't necessarily have to read and write the language before you can start to understand it and speak it yourself. So that's why sometimes Suzuki gets a bad rap, because you'll hear people say, oh, well, they're a Suzuki kid, they can play by ear, but they can't sight read, you know, because the reading comes later, but yet that should come still at a fairly young age. In my studio, I'll start them once they're able to track along with music, and they're able to read English or French already, then we start, right?
Yeah, but I also think is what is important about Suzuki too. You tell me if I'm correct. Is that also they use this idea of the triangle, no? The teacher, the father, and the student, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's exactly the Suzuki triangle. We talk about that all the time. So exactly, you mentioned it. So the child, the teacher, and the parent. That usually there's one practicing parent. And so the three have to work together. So when I'm in the studio with the parent and the child, I'm teaching the child, the parent is listening and taking notes. But when they go home, so that's most of the time they're home practicing with their kids, that's the parent and the child, right? So, but we have to work together, because if you drop your 3-year-old off for a lesson and then you expect them to practice on their own, it's really unrealistic, yeah. Right? Yeah. You have to, and so I say basically until the kid is at least 11, I try to have the parent involved in some way with daily practicing. Once they're old enough, you know, they can look back at their notes or watch their video from their lesson, then they're off and running, hopefully. They just usually need their parents to remind them to practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And it totally makes sense, because like you said, we always start learning orally, yeah, and it's funny because this few days ago I got a video of a little girl who is the daughter of a friend. She was starting to read, you know, like putting letters together, like P-A, pa, you know, like, and she was so excited about realizing of the connection. But and what I'm going to say is, it might sound a little absurd, but then I realized, wow, I realized, like, consciousnly, like, we really learn by listening first, you know. Yeah. and it was a very, like, a revelation for me, although I always knew this, no, but realizing that in a kid is like, wow. So as musicians, it's so important, you know, the ears,
yes.
and of course the rest will come later, no. I mean, you have to have everything at the end, no, but it was such a beautiful revelation for me to realize that with this little kid. It was amazing.
Yeah. And with the violin, it's actually a distraction if you put something in front of a kid's face, because let's face it, like Jeremy was just telling me, so for those who are listening, my husband's another violinist. We're all friends from Michigan. Anyway, I met my husband at the University of Michigan. We were in the same studio. So anyway, but like my husband was saying, like, so much of our focus when we're teaching, at least 90% of what we're teaching, is basically just how to execute this phrase that we see or that we hear on this instrument, and the technical aspect of it. Which now, if you add to that, like if you've got a 4-year-old in front of you and you're asking them, you know, hold your bow like this, hold your violin up, and make sure you draw a straight bow, get a good sound, blah, blah. If you add to that another thing to focus on, which is, what note is that? You know, it's just way too much overload, you know, like it's like decoding way too much at a given time.
Yeah. It's so for me so beautiful to teach, you know. And I don't teach very much anymore, but I admire so much who the people that do it, no? Because it's such a beautiful responsibility.
Yes, it is.
And because you start opening these minds, you know, and it's like a world of the world of imagination, no? And usually it's a world that we all go probably by listening or by somebody telling you a dream, or you know, so it's or reading a book. No, it comes from the same world of imagination that is so incredible, no? And
yeah,
and at the end, it's your own world.
yes.
Yeah.
I think it's really neat when I'll have kids just come to a lesson and they'll say, Sarah, I wrote my own piece of music. You know, they're like 5 years old. Guess what I wrote this week? And they'll either have like scribbled something that kind of resembles notes on a staff, or it'll just be up here and they'll just play me a little ditty, and then they'll say, I'm going to teach it to you. And okay, so I'm going to, you know, and it's usually not that complicated. It's like da, 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 or something like that. But we'll play along, and then we'll just kind of experiment a little bit, and then they're just so pleased with themselves. And it's something that came out of their head that they've created. So, yeah.
And does Suzuki also explore the idea of working in groups with the students?
Thank you. You're touching on another very key point. Yeah. You are really hitting all the points today. I'm going to have you come in and teach my kids. Have you as a pedagogue, faculty weekend. So anyway, yes, absolutely. So not only do we have the private lesson and the practicing at home components, but we also plug kids into group classes. So whatever they're learning, the repertoire that they start building from the Twinkle just continues to grow over the 7, 8, 9, 10 books, however many books they learn by ear. And then we get together once a week, we play them together. And we learn all the same bowings and all the same fingerings. And maybe some people think that's kind of rigid, but it's kind of beautiful because you can get kids from all over the world, throw them together, have a big play down, and everybody wins and everybody understands each other, even if they don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
So it really unifies people, families, kids, and it also helps just kind of solidify their knowledge from what they've learned in their private lessons. And it also gives them something to aspire to, because they'll see, oh, well, so-and-so, she's starting to vibrate. Oh, wow, I want to vibrate, Then they'll come to the next lesson like,
yeah. I was going to share a story like this. I was teaching in a small town in Chile called Curanilawe, which used to be a mine town. And they have a youth orchestra program, a beautiful one. And I was part of them, of the program for a few years. And I remember we were having a group lesson, and suddenly there was this girl, like playing like this, maybe 7 years old.
Wow.
And I realized that the other kids were looking at her like what is she doing, And so when I realized, I said to her, I don't recall her name. It's like, I don't know, Patty, how did you learn to do that? I said to her, well, I just watch you do it, and I just do it, So it was so cute.
I love it.
And I think that's actually totally an inspiration by working as a group.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how children don't tell themselves, well, I want to vibrate, so I'm going to tell my teacher that next lesson, and then we'll have a 10-step plan to vibrate. They're just like, no, I'm going to vibrate today. And then they just start, some of them. Not all of them, but some of them they just decide, and they come to a lesson. It's like, okay, well, we can work with that, But just having the desire and no obstacles saying you can't do that, don't try that yet, or, it's very important to, it's kind of, there's that delicate balance, because you'll have the kids that just, they teach themselves, you know, they'll teach themselves the next 5 pieces in the book, and you're like, no, you know, please don't, because you're learning all the wrong fingerings and stuff. But on the other hand, you have to foster that, because it's really exciting to have someone with that desire and that will to learn it.
While I used to teach, something that I learned from the process, and I want you to know if you agree with this. I realized that little kids learn like by doing small things, like I don't know, like maybe 3 notes or 4 notes. But for me, I realized that it works better if I do these 4 notes many times in the lesson, that just stay with one thing for half an hour and another thing for another half an hour. Is it like this also for you? Like, I really realized of that, and the idea that the learning occurs suddenly, you know, it's like they got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So the first question, I would definitely say it depends on the age, right? Like when you have a 2 or 3-year-old, then your points are going to be really like maybe 2 minutes. You work on something for 2 minutes or 5 minutes maximum, and then you're moving on to the next skill. And then you're going to come back to that first skill, because you can't give them too many points. Like there needs to be one. That was the other thing with Suzuki. It was like Dr. Suzuki would say, the 1 point lesson. And I'm always struggling to do that still. It's really hard, because you can get you see all these things you want to work on. You have half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And it's really difficult to just do that 1 point. And really for the younger ones, they need that, because they need to come home and then when their parent asks them, well, what did you work on? Oh, well, we really worked on keeping my pinky round, or whatever, you know, something like pretty basic that they're going to remember. But going back to your question originally, so it really depends on their age, you know, what level, how much can they concentrate on one task, right? So you will have various little tasks over the lesson. You may circle back to some. And then for yourself, you were saying your second point,
About
something
learning like suddenly. Yeah.
Yes. Now that, yes, you can see there is usually that moment, right, where it clicks. But I think the discipline for me is always to wait for that aha moment before moving to the next. Because sometimes, you know, you'll see that they're getting frustrated. I've had them do it like 8 times different ways, you know, to learn one little segment, and we're trying to think of different ways to learn it. And if you don't wait for that click, you might be working on that same passage next week at the lesson. So that's another thing for me to remember when I'm teaching, is like, you got to wait for it. You see the little light bulb, or they execute it beautifully 3 times in a row or something.
Yeah,
this is great. That's difficult.
Yeah. Sara, talking about teachers, we had the same teacher at the University of Michigan.
Yes,
Paul Cantor. Yeah, dear Paul Cantor. Tell me, why did you choose to go to the University of Michigan?
Well, that's a great question again. So going to school at McGill University, where I did my undergrad in Montreal, I had numerous friends that had decided that they were going to do their master's in the States. And I thought, well, that sounds like a neat idea. At that point, my primary teacher at McGill University had taken a position at Indiana University, and I had gone to study with him for summer. And so I thought, well, that's a logical progression. And I know there are more universities and more teachers in the States. So, you know, that kind of broadened my my base for universities to look at. And I basically word of mouth. So I heard about 3 amazing teachers at different universities. One was Kathleen Winkler at Rice University. One was Mr. Wallerstein, Don Wallerstein, who was at the time at Cleveland Institute of Music. And then the other one was Paul Cantor at University of Michigan. So I did fly down to all 3 cities. and take auditions in person at all 3 universities. And I was fortunate to take a very short lesson, I believe, with, I think all 3 of them may have given me very short lessons. And then after that, it was kind of a waiting game to see who was going to give me money.
Yeah.
You know, the US dollar and the Canadian dollar are still not on par. They weren't at the time either. And then it just so happened that I got into Mr. Cantor's studio, and he was able to offer me a fellowship. And so that kind of made it a no-brainer. And I'm just so fortunate that it worked out. I just feel very blessed. I've always thought about, my goodness, what if I hadn't gone into that studio? What if I'd gone to Houston or Cleveland? Life would have been so different. I mean, it's crazy, right? And it's good that we don't think about this when we're that age, when we're in our early 20s, about how life altering that one decision will be, because it's kind of it's a big deal when you think about it. And consequently, I met my husband. So, like we talk about this all the time. What if I wouldn't have these 2 beautiful children that are roaming around the house right now, quietly? And so, yeah, it's interesting. But it's funny because Jeremy, my husband, actually ended up auditioning for the exact same studios 1 year after I did.
Wow.
And so it's just kind of a really neat thing that we both ended up the same studio, same university, overlapping by just 1 year.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Really amazing. We are talking here with Sara Mastrangelo, who is in Canada right now, and thank you all for being here. I also I open, if you want to have if you want to write questions, we're happy to answer them. Sara is a wonderful violinist, and we both met at the University of Michigan, and this is actually what is connecting us. And again, with the idea of reconnecting and to know how all my friends are doing. So thank you, Sara, for being here. And yes, I remember when I actually had to decide to go to do my master's somewhere. I was studying in Georgia, in the States, and I went to Aspen. But before going to Aspen, I happened to have a lesson with Robert McDuffie. I don't know if you know him. And I told him, I'm thinking of doing a master's. Who are the teachers that you recommend? And it's funny because he suggested for me Paul Cantor at University of Michigan and Robert Lipset in California. Mm-hmm. No? So it's amazing how we ask for recommendations, and then the names start appearing. And Paul Cantor was the one that I actually ended up deciding to go to Michigan. And it did happen that I went to Aspen and I studied with him during the summer. And it was really fantastic for me. He broke all my ideas, my previous ideas about playing the violin.
It's so wonderful to talk again about my very brief time in Michigan, and you were fortunate to have 5 years with Mr. Cantor. So I'm sure you have even more stories, but we still fondly talk about our lessons with him, and we miss him very much. And if he's listening, hi.
Hi, Paul.
Yes, we have just the best memories of lessons in his studio, and some funny stories too. And yeah, it was a really good time to be there. The campus is so nice and quiet. It's beautiful. There are trees everywhere. I remember walking to school every day down the hill and just feeling like this is such a nice place to learn and not be distracted. McGill was wonderful. I loved it, but it's in a big city, bustling Montreal, and there are many distractions, that come with living in a big city.
Yeah, I think that's something beautiful about Ann Arbor, that is big enough that you feel like a big city, but at the same time has all the commodities of a small city, no? I
Yes.
also remember so beautiful to sit, in front of the pond,
Yeah.
just to rest before going back to practice, no?
Yes.
And something I also that I treasure a lot from Michigan was this sense of family, no? That if it ever was a competition around, it never felt like such, no?
Definitely. I agree with
So
you.
too? Yeah.
And I think that Mr. Cantor definitely fostered that feeling within our studio. I mean, we were an amazing studio. When I think about where we're all now, I mean, it's incredible to think how many of us have actually stayed in music and have had or are having successful careers in music. And that just speaks to the level of training that we received with Mr. Cantor. But he really fostered this feeling of just support within the studio. And I remember, I'm sure you remember all the master classes, very different than master classes I'd been to before, where, you play, you get very nervous, you get dressed up, the old school master class. You get extremely nervous and you play for everybody, and then you sit down and then your teacher reams you. Well, not necessarily, but your teacher, proceeds to explain how it should have been done. But it was very different in Mr. Cantor's studio because we were all invited to partake and to give constructive criticism, positive feedback, which kind of gels very well with my Suzuki background, where you're always invited to say something nice, something you actually genuinely enjoyed about the performance. Not just, well, that was really nice, but pick one thing that was really beautiful and noteworthy of praise, and then proceed to say, and we can work on such and such.
Yeah.
I thought maybe you could try this in this passage. So I think that kind of made us all into better teachers, even though we weren't necessarily all planning to be teachers. I think a lot of us kind of thought, well, we're going to get a job in an orchestra or soloist or be a quartet musician. And then for you didn't know that you're going to be a full-time conductor. but yeah, but I think we all became better teachers because of it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're mentioning this because I didn't realize that this could be. I mean, what I feel about him is what you said about the appreciation, no? To be appreciative of the moment, of the situation, but also to learn to be appreciative to others first, no? Like see the wonderful things in others first, and then you concentrate on what it has to be worked on. But like, just as you are talking about this, it made me realize how potent that is in my own life, especially when I work with young musicians, and when one comes from a culture that is not really necessarily appreciative, but when I'm talking about my own country here, so it's a learning that one needs to have, and really bring life from appreciation.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And just seeing the beauty, truth and beauty in everything, and starting with that. And I think it's just a daily mindset that we can have, because it's so easy, especially now in these COVID days, to kind of wake up and have this, defeated, or, just kind of wondering, why is my life not going this way? Why is this happening? And why do I have to change my plans? And I don't like this isn't going the way I wanted it to. But just stopping and saying, hey, look, this is all, look at the good, and then see what can you do personally to change what's not good.
It's great. So, Sara, where do you live now? Where are you now?
Well, I am in the beautiful capital city of Ottawa in Ontario of Canada. And we absolutely love living here. It is just, it's a beautiful, beautiful city. There are so many things to do for families. There are wonderful museums and parks. And we are almost a stone's throw from the river, from the Ottawa River. And right over the river, I can pretty much see Gatineau, which is Quebec, the province of Quebec. And there are beautiful hills and places to hike there. So we're very blessed because when COVID hit, obviously people were not going out, and people were being very, very careful about, you know, what they were doing. And we were able to still go outside for nature walks. And so that was kind of a saving factor in our sanity, being able to get outside, get into nature. We live very close to many trails. So if you come visit, I'll show you the trails. And in the winter time, we ski. That's what we do. We're cross-country skiers. If you like downhill, it's, you know, 45 minutes from here, I can take you to a bunch of downhill ski slopes. But our family is a little safer. My daughter's ventured into downhill, and we're going to try maybe next winter. But
that's great. Yeah. I was mentioning to you before that I did go to Ottawa for the conducting workshop with Ken Kisler many years ago. And it was such an amazing experience. And the city was, I was really, you know, something that I was really impressed by the city is that I was about to cross the street and the light was red. So I couldn't cross. No cars coming either way. There were like 5 people behind me, no one crossed. I was like, incredible. my first intuition would be, oh, no cars, I will just go. You know, so I didn't, because I realized that nobody else was doing it. So it tells me a lot about a city, about a country, you know. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, I would say that in Ottawa, we're a bunch of rule followers. At least half of us work for the government, the other half's in high tech. So I think that's one of the reasons that our city has been very fortunate with the pandemic. There have not been a ton of cases. There have been cases. There will be more cases as schools are now reopening. But I think one of the reasons it didn't hit us worse is because when the government told us, put on your mask, we all put our masks on. You know, when the government says stay home, we all stayed home. So I think that has really helped us with the spread being slower than in some places. But yeah, we're definitely rule followers. And if you're driving, and my husband knows this as an American, when we first came to Canada, and we were visiting Nova Scotia. My parents used to live in Nova Scotia. One time he actually drove slowly through a pedestrian walk zone. And the look he got from pedestrians, like, how dare you blow this pedestrian? It wasn't a stop sign, it wasn't a red light, but he went through it, and he's like, I'll never do that again, because the look he got from the pedestrians, because they are expecting you to stop.
Yeah, great, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I remember the orchestra also, the National Arts Center Orchestra, just amazing, incredible.
Well, I'm so glad you got to conduct them, and I hope you will again. They're a wonderful group of people. They're lovely, lovely people. We all miss each other right now. Obviously, we're doing as much chamber music at home and in our garages that we can. Some live concerts. Jeremy and I did a few porch concerts this summer, planning a couple more. And we're doing videos and putting them on the website for National Arts Center Orchestra. But plans are in the way to be back together soon and do some recordings, I believe. So that's exciting. But it's been tough for orchestral musicians, I'm sure. Like, what's going on in Santiago? Like, when are you guys planning to get back together?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's not planned yet. We're planning probably December to start maybe doing something, but it's so up in the air. I mean, this is incredible. What is happening, no? And I always say that are times to reflect, no? The humanity, we need to reflect on our lives and our values, and which is, I think, is fantastic too, in a way. No?
Yes.
Also a moment to I don't know, I wouldn't say stop, but to pause and I guess, like I said before, is to appreciate again all we have, and also realize of the things that probably are not so important that we need to live out of our lives. Yeah.
Yes.
How has it been? Have you kept teaching during this time?
Yes. So I went online in March,
Mm-hmm.
and I only recently this week opened up my garage for in-person lessons. So I taught my first in-person lesson on Monday, and we're all, wearing our masks, and the doors are open, so there's lots of airflow, and we're constantly spritzing our hands with hand sanitizer. And I just expect that if anyone has any symptoms whatsoever, first of all, if there's any in my home, they're staying home. If there's any in their home, they're not coming into my garage. So that it's a lot of my friends are just staying online right now, and I would have preferred to, but I have beginners, and with beginners, 4-year-old beginners, I didn't see any way that I was going to teach them a bow hand online. I just felt the need to be in person, and it's been so wonderful because the response I've gotten from parents this week has been just phenomenal. Like, oh, we're so glad to be in person. We're so glad because, over COVID, kids start playing like this, right? They start developing all these terrible habits. And like in one lesson with in person, it's able that the parent is now given the authority to address that with their child and maybe some tools, so that's been really great. I've loved to see them in person. As much as I hate wearing a mask, it is so hard to, because I'm very, when I'm teaching, I'm probably like, when, it's very active. You're talking, you're singing, you're dancing, whatever, you're moving. And after a while, it gets a little hard to breathe.
Yeah.
So I'm still getting used to that, but I can't complain because, so many people are having to wear that layer plus this, the whole, just to go to work for 12 hours. And so when I think about that, I'm like, I cannot complain about doing this for 4 hours, just wearing a simple mask, and my heart goes out to all those people that are working in healthcare right now.
Absolutely. Sara, if let's say we pass the pandemic.
We will.
And yeah, it will at some time, and optimistic that hopefully we will be soon. No? Tell me about your life, your musical life in terms of playing. Like, do you perform often? I'm sure you do with Jeremy, especially. I mean, you're lucky to have Jeremy around also to do chamber music, or do you teach at festivals? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure, thanks. Yes, so a normal year, what would normal be like again? Pre-pandemic, okay, let's go. Pre-March, it was a little bit crazy, I have to be totally honest, because I was playing almost every week with the National Arts Center Orchestra as an extra. And I was also playing, I play with the 13 Strings Chamber Orchestra. We're just 13. And we put on several concerts a year. So I had those two orchestras and then a fairly big studio. So I didn't really have time to do a lot of extra soloing or chamber music at that time. I was just kind of, day by day. So
Sorry, keep going.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I just realized that this pandemic has been a blessing because I've been able to do chamber music again with my husband, with my daughter on piano. She's accompanying now, which is fantastic. So we're realizing that we really miss the chamber music aspect of our lives. So hopefully we'll keep that going in the future. When we lived in Syracuse, New York, we did a lot more chamber music for some reason. I'm not sure, maybe because we had less teaching or the orchestra schedule wasn't quite as rigorous. So yeah, we missed that. And in the summertime, this is a 46 week season with the orchestra here. So we do still have some time off in the summer. We love going down to our old stomping grounds in upstate New York, the Finger Lake region. I don't know if you've heard of it, but they're beautiful, beautiful little tiny glacier lakes. And there's a terrific music festival called the Skaneatlas Music Festival. So we love going down there in the summer to play with our old friends once or twice a summer. And there's also incredible music festival in Ottawa. Well, there are two in the summer, Music and Beyond, and what's the other one? Ottawa Chamber Fest. So they're both started by the same gentleman, Julian Armour, and I get to play with him usually once or twice or 3 times per summer in that festival. So there's lots to do. There's always a lot to do, but never enough chamber music, right?
Yeah, I know. Jean McLeod says, "Hi, Sara."
Who? I'm sorry. Who? Ian?
Jean McLeod.
Oh my goodness! Hi, Jean. I think she's in Mexico right now, right?
I don't know. Maybe she will tell us.
Yeah, I think she's my friend from Syracuse that lives in Mexico now.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's great. You spent a lot of time in Syracuse, right? Many years. Yeah.
Yes, we did. So after Michigan, I spent a year University of in Carnegie Mellon University with Andres Cardenas, who you probably know, a former concertmaster, Pittsburgh, and wonderful, wonderful, wonderful man and teacher and violinist, and so that was a great year, and I was fortunate to be there. And then we got married and moved down to Miami and spent a year at the New World Symphony Orchestra as fellows there. And then Jeremy won the Associate Concertmaster in Syracuse. So that was 2001. So from 2001 to 2013, when we moved to Ottawa, we were in Syracuse. We had our children there. We had a very happy life there. Lots of great friends still there. Unfortunately, the orchestra filed for total bankruptcy in 2011. Yeah. So that was a very difficult time for all of our colleagues and ourselves, and kind of was the impetus for Jeremy starting to play with other orchestras, first as guest concertmaster and then guest principal second in Ottawa, and kind of one of the catalyst for us moving up to Canada, which I never thought I would do. I'd forgotten. I told Jeremy recently, like he's reminded me recently that when we were first married, I'd said to him that I kind of wanted to someday end up back in Canada, and I'd forgotten about this. And then we just kind of got plopped back in Ottawa, and it was just such a neat thing that he reminded me of, that I kind of forgotten that I wanted to live back in Canada someday. Wow. So now my kids are dual citizens.
The power of your mind, you see?
Or something, yeah.
Jean says that she's in Mexico. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's wonderful.
Sara, it's so great to talk to you and to see you again, and also saw Jeremy before, so you all look the same, and like I said before, probably in every meeting for me, so special to reconnect with everyone and to feel the essence of each of you, and also how it brings my own essence, no, because we all spend time together, but sometimes not so much, but just the fact that we were there at Michigan with the same teacher, it makes it totally special. Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody has a question here. I don't say the name because I don't understand the name. It might be Eric. It says, about teaching during pandemic times, which recommendations can you give us for improve the class instruments, the classes? Which recommendations? Are you talking about by internet. I assume that, right? So.
And Eric, I may not understand the question correctly. So please, if I go off in the wrong tangent, just write back to Alejandra. Everybody is finding their own method of what works for them, their best computer setup, their best sound setup, their best microphone and earphones. And so I've talked to many teachers that have quite elaborate setups, and I'm always blown away. You know, some of them have 2 cameras on them and a huge big screen, and then they've got their microphone set up. And I haven't done that, to be honest. I didn't spend the time and the money into to really invest in that. But I see the benefit of that, because once you have your infrastructure in place, you can teach anyone in the world, and you can still have really great sound, and they can understand you. And I've been so blown away by how well my students did still learn online for 7 months. Like, even my 4-year-olds, I thought they would come back and they wouldn't have learned anything, but it's incredible. It really is incredible what we can now do over the internet. I don't think I'm answering the question very well, but.
No, it's totally, I think. Let's wait if he says something. Do you, Sara, do you do your lessons by Zoom or?
Yeah, so I've heard that Zoom is changing some things, which is going to make it easier for music teachers. I have done some of my students on Zoom. The one thing that I found a little more difficult is because the sound will come from one side or the other, but you can't both be talking or playing at the same time. So I have used a lot of FaceTime with those that have Apple products, but I've used everything: WhatsApp, FaceTime, Instant Messenger, and Zoom. And I kind of leave it up to the student and their parent to tell me what they prefer, because ultimately they're the ones that, you know, they have that specific program and they're comfortable with it. But actually, I think going forward, perhaps Zoom is going to be a better platform for musicians. And most of my friends, I would say, are using Zoom.
Yeah. Jean asks, how do you handle time delay when playing duet music online with students?
You basically can't. And this became an issue when my ensemble of 12 violinists, Stella Borealis, that is like the senior group at Ottawa Suzuki Strings, the ones that I had brought to Buenos Aires a few years ago. When we started having our rehearsals on Zoom in March, it became very difficult to figure out how to do that in a constructive way. We had, I guess, breakout rooms. We'd have, you know, smaller groups playing together. If it was a 3-part harmony, they'd each be on a separate call. And so one would be with one coach, one would be with another coach. And sometimes there was one group that didn't have a coach, or we would do 2 parts and each coach would be on one call with that part. But we all had to mute ourselves and just play along, taking turns leading. So you can't, right, with our current technology, it is pretty much impossible to actually play together because of the lag and because of how the speakers feed in and out.
Yeah, I agree. I tried it and it was impossible.
Right.
Yeah? Sara, we have 5 minutes to go, and I would love if you can share with us what does music mean to you?
What does music mean? Well, I would say that in periods of my life when I wasn't playing the violin much, when I was less engaged with the violin, I didn't mention before, but when our orchestra did fold in Syracuse, I actually took a job as a life insurance salesperson for a couple of years. And I didn't stop playing or teaching, but I did a lot less of it. But coming back to it when I moved up to Ottawa and being able to play again on a more routine basis with an orchestra, it really felt like I was coming home. So not just coming home to Canada, but just coming home to my violin, right? It's because, and I'm sure you're the same way, you must have started when you were very young as well, right, Alejandra?
Not as young. I was 8. Not so young. Yeah,
but
young enough.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. But it becomes a part of who you are, right?
Absolutely.
You can't. It's just kind of like having breakfast, or brushing your teeth. It's like holding the violin just feels very natural and very like you just feel more complete with it. So I would say I can't really imagine my life without music in it, without specifically the violin. But I mean, it's just a part of my entire being, and I can't really separate myself from music. And I mean, there's music in everything, and it's interesting how in this pandemic people have realized how much they crave music, especially the live music, and we always fret as orchestra musicians. We fret about our declining audience. Oh no, we're losing audiences. And now with the pandemic, will they ever come back to live music? And you can read so many articles about this that it's like the doom and gloom. But you know what? No, we're never going to lose our audience, because people crave it's never the same. As listening to music online is not the same as live.
Yeah.
And I think people really know that. And so when they get a little taste of the live, they, it's just like,
I agree.
It's special, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's something about the vibration of the moment that goes straight to your soul. Yeah. And you cannot explain that, really, that process. I cannot put it into words. It's just, you just have to experience the moment, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Sara, before we finish, of course, I thank you so much for having the time and to be with me, with us, and to get to know your experience with music. And something that I really love is that many of my colleagues that I have been talking with have children, and they are also musicians, and I just love that, because I mean, they can become musicians if they want to, but there's something about playing an instrument or being in touch with music that makes you such an incredible human being. It has to do with values, and also to have like an instant connection with beauty, no? And then you realize that you're creating this, no? And I just love, and I really admire all my colleagues that have children, especially in this time that everything moves so fast, that they have the time to learn music, no? To play an instrument, and because it's also, at the end, it's like you said at the beginning, it's a language that once we unlearn it, we can connect with it, no?
Exactly. And this is, I mean, my kids from time to time ask if they can stop taking piano lessons. and we always say, well, please, just another year. And I think, and they say, well, we're probably not going to become professional musicians, because they see us, they know what our lives are like. And that's not really something that they're aspiring towards, and that's fine. But we say, but you will never, ever regret one moment spent practicing, one moment in a lesson. You will never. I have never once heard an adult come up to me and say, I used to play violin, and I really wish that I had quit when I was 4, or I wish I had quit when I was in grade 10. Why did I keep taking lessons? No, it's always the opposite, right? I wish I had kept it up longer. I miss it. I loved my lessons. I loved practicing. I miss the violin. I miss the piano, whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
It's a lifelong skill. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, okay, Sarah. Well, thank you again for being here. Thank you, everyone who are listening and watching us. And I, like I said before, I have lots of appreciation for my time at the University of Michigan, all my peers. I learned from so many of you, all of you actually. Like you said before, I mean, we talked about Suzuki, but we also learned in studio class to listen to each other and also to receive and to give positive comments, and which creates so much respect from one to the other. So thank you again, Sara, for your time. And like always, I wish you the best, and I hope we will see each other soon. Remember, I'm going to be in Calgary in February.
Yes, I am praying that happens.
Hoping that it will happen. So
yes.
Thank you again, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Alejandra. It's been such a pleasure. Please stay in touch.
Thank you. I will.
All the best.
Bye everyone, and I will see you next Sunday.
Thanks.